right. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for attending today's webinar titled Deploying an ELD, What You Need to Know. My name is Colleen, and I'll be acting as moderator for today's presentation. We're going to go ahead and get started in just a second, but first I'd like to say that we're very excited to have Rachel Hahn as our presenter today. As a subject matter expert on ELDs, Rachel will be sharing her knowledge so that you are ready to deploy the ELDs in your fleet. Additionally, Phil Arsenault and Mike Coble are listening in and will be participating in the Q&A session at the end of this webinar. Both Phil and Mike have over 20 years of experience deploying in-cab mobile computing devices and fleet management technology. Before we get started, I want to give everyone a quick heads up that your microphones have been muted. So if you have any questions at any time during the presentation, you can use the WebEx chat tool, which you'll see the chat icon located on your screen, and this is an instant messaging tool available to you. Please feel free to use the chat tool to enter any questions during the presentation, and make sure you send them to host, and I'll be happy to field and relay them to Rachel at the conclusion of the presentation for a brief Q&A. With that said, I think we're ready to get started. Rachel, take it away.
Thanks, Colleen, for the introduction. I'm happy to be here today to speak about deploying ELD. Here's the overview of the topics for today. We'll cover some necessary steps for pre-deployment planning, expected roles and resources needed within your organization, some tips for helping drivers transition, and expected roles of a good vendor in ELD deployment and operation. Let's get started. First, it's important to consider resource requirements for the ELD deployment. Identify key personnel that should be involved in the deployment and the resources required for ongoing administration and support for post-deployment. The roles involve project management, training, installation, and ongoing administration. I'll provide more details later on this in the webinar. Hardware availability is a big one. With the ELD mandate fast approaching in December, lead times are increasing. Make sure you know what the lead times will be for any hardware required. If you're looking at buying your own device, what are those lead times? Consider this. If 80% of the companies leave it until the last minute, you will be fighting for the supply of hardware. In addition to ordering hardware, that hardware has to be installed. There are a couple of options to choose from when installing hardware. First is self-installation. If the plan is to install the hardware yourself, you need to look at if that is feasible. Will all your vehicles be available at one time? Is the shop available to do multiple installs? ELD installs, if the installer knows what they're doing, typically take 45 minutes to an hour per vehicle to install. Instead of installing the hardware yourself, you may want to hire a third-party installation company. You need to consider when they are available and make sure your trucks are available at the same time. How many vehicles do they need a day? That leads to cost. Something that is often missed with hiring installers is if travel is included. Are you going to have to hire the installer back again to add any additional units or replace any damaged units? That leads to cost. There is definitely value in self-installation. Some of the benefits are the control of the schedule. Self-installing gives you the flexibility to adjust to your day-to-day business needs. Ongoing maintenance. Your staff can perform the ongoing maintenance of ELDs in the future, as they will already be trained from the initial deployment. Fleet expansion. If your fleet expands or you change vehicles, you have the knowledge base in-house to do the new installation. Next, there are some key roles and resources needed within your organization. In our experience, successful projects have a dedicated project manager committed to the success of the project. The project manager should be a positive person who is a product champion for transitioning to ELD. They should have the authority to make decisions and leadership ability to ensure the deployment stays on schedule. If possible, try to select a project manager who is familiar with the technical aspects of your company's vehicles. Along with a committed project manager, you need a structured deployment plan. A word to the wise, start now. If you wait until the 11th hour to start planning or installing, it is guaranteed not to go well. In your plan, consider installing in a few vehicles and training a smaller group to get key staff who you know will buy into the process, familiar with the system. After success with the initial group, continue rollout in conjunction with training and support capabilities. If deploying to a larger fleet, deploy region by region. Educating drivers is only part of the work. Carriers also have to educate dispatchers, salespeople, and their customers. Just a few of the mandatory ELD rules include having an ELD user manual in each vehicle. Did you know that you're also required to have an instruction sheet for transferring hours of service records to safety officials? Also within the vehicle, you need an instruction sheet on reporting ELD malfunctions and record-keeping procedures, and at least an 8-day supply of paper tracking forms, including a grid for graphs in case of an ELD malfunction. Now, here's some tips for helping your drivers transition. Communication is key. When transitioning from paper to electronic logs, it's important to make sure everyone knows what to expect. This change will affect drivers' day-to-day work, so communicating the change ahead of time is crucial. Take the time to explain exactly what an ELD is and what it is monitoring. Rumors can easily spread about what information is tracked with an ELD. Some key topics to discuss are, 1, how ELDs work. Speak about how hours are recorded and stored. 2, what happens if a driver makes a reporting mistake? Ease their worries about errors on the ELD. 3, the timeline. An accurate timeline of when your fleet will implement ELDs. Drivers should not have this type of culture change sprung upon them at the last minute. Ideally, at least a 90-day notice is appropriate. Host a question and answer period. Invite your drivers to share their thoughts, questions, and concerns. It's important to be as transparent as possible with the drivers during this time. Make sure to continually follow up with your drivers and management staff to proactively manage any issues. Remember to focus on the positives. Stay positive about ELDs when communicating with drivers. Even though the FMCSA mandates them, there is a positive side to ELDs that you can focus on. These positives will improve work and possibly earning potential for drivers. Some of the benefits to communicate are maximize driving time and possibly earning potential. Paper logs require a driver to round up, but electronic logs use every available minute of drive time. An end to manual logbook entries. Paperwork isn't a highlight of any driver's day. Improved safety and accountability. Both employers and drivers have to respect legal limits and off-duty time. Streamlined roadside checks. DOT officers can quickly verify hours of service. And minimized interruptions from the back office. No calls from the back office to check for a driver's hours of service availability. Next, we'll look at some incentives for your drivers. Since ELDs offer additional functionality, such as a driver scorecard, there's an opportunity for drivers to get recognition for their good driving habits. Metric-based scorecards can be used to reward a high standard of work. By providing recognition and incentives, a driver's job can become more rewarding than it was when they were using paper logs. In turn, this may improve their opinion of ELDs and lead to a more successful transition. Next, here are some expected roles of a good vendor. A good vendor will give you the opportunity to evaluate the solution. If you have narrowed it down to a few ELD providers, you should be able to easily see these solutions by requesting a live demonstration of the product. You should doubt the legitimacy of the vendor if they're unable to allow you to evaluate the solution, because any reputable vendor is happy to provide you with a demo or trial. Let's talk about customization. A good vendor should offer you more than just ELD. Look for a platform that lets you expand with the future requirements of your fleet. The vendor should work with you to understand the unique requirements of your fleet when it comes to technology. Find a solution to maximize efficiency and your ELD investment. Many ELD providers also provide mapping functionality, pre- and post-trip inspections, custom reporting, and field ticketing capabilities. Another important role is support. Your ELD provider should provide you support for the deployment rollout. Weekly calls should be a bare minimum in vendor-client communication, and your questions should be taken seriously and answered promptly. Although on-site support may come with a cost, it will pay off in the long run, so you should ask potential vendors what type of support they offer during the deployment. So I provided information for pre-deployment. What about post-deployment of your ELDs? Don't forget, ELDs are no different than systems such as an accounting system. ELDs will not run themselves. Consider that you will need a dedicated system administrator for day-to-day operation of ELDs in your fleet. Some of the roles of the system administrator include editing driver logs, adding, modifying, and terminating drivers in the back office system, and providing driver support. Remember, the vendor is not here to enforce hours of service compliance, so a system administrator within your company will focus on that role. let's wrap up with a final key takeaway. Deploying an ELD takes time, and you should start now. The time before the compliance date is running out. At AssetWorks, we're happy to provide a demo or a quote for our ELD solution. After this webinar, a page will pop up to request a demo today. That's it for me. I'll pass it back to Colleen for the Q&A period.
All right, great job, Rachel. Thank you so much for providing that valuable information about deploying your ELD. What we're going to do is open the floor up for some of your questions. Just a reminder, if you do have questions, please send them to the host using the chat tool on your screen. Provided we have enough time, I'll pass your questions to Rachel, Mike, and Phil, and they'll be happy to give you an answer. If for any reason we are not able to get to all of the questions, they will be responded to in turn privately after the end of the webinar. So just to start, it looks like we've had a couple come in, and one of the attendees wants to know how long AssetWorks has been in business and as a general rule in relation to the ELD product offerings.
Yeah, AssetWorks has been in business for more than 30 years, and we've been providing mobile computing solutions for 25 plus of those years. And with the ELD side of things, we've been working with electronic driver logs for approximately 7 years.
Okay. So the other question that I have here is, someone wanted to know if the same device will work in any type of vehicle or if it's restricted to one specific type of vehicle.
No, the device that was displayed during the presentation there will work in your light-duty or heavy-duty vehicles. A lot of people don't consider light-duty vehicles like pickups to require ELDs, but if they get over 10,000 pounds, in the cases where they have trailers or things like that, that same device will work in the light-duty portion of your fleet.
Okay. Another question that's come up is how rugged are these units, or is there a difference between the rugged units or the non-rugged units, and do they all meet compliance?
Yeah, so the device shown in the presentation there, we consider that a semi-rugged product. It has a good temperature spec rating, so it can work in examples Texas, it can work up through Alaska, things like that. We do have our own in-house manufactured ruggedized device as well. That's for very harsh environments such as, let's say, the Arctic or places with a large amounts of more dust or vibrations, things like that. So we do have a variety of offerings to meet specific client needs and ability.
Wonderful. Someone else wanted to know if there's an age of vehicle that the mandate applies to, or if all the vehicles in the entire fleet require ELDs to meet the mandate.
Yeah, if your vehicle is older than year 2000, then it does not require an ELD. But anything 2000 newer does require an ELD.
Okay. Do we offer any lease options for our ELD units?
Yeah, there's a financing to own, which essentially bundles everything into a monthly fee per vehicle.
Okay. For those who may not know, what is the date? What is the ELD mandate date? And I know it's coming up soon, but what is it?
December 18th, 2017. So yeah,
wow.
It's
coming up quite fast. Okay. So I think that's about all the time that we have for questions today. At this time, I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to attend today's presentation. Hopefully you've all secured some valuable takeaways to keep in mind moving forward. Rachel, I'd like to thank you on behalf of AssetWorks once again for sharing your expertise. As you see, Rachel's contact information is available here should any of you have any follow-up questions. And after the webinar concludes, a link will pop up on your screen to request a demo for AssetWorks ELD devices if you are interested. Thank you again for attending. Have a great day, and we look forward to having you with us next time.